I made the Forbes 30 under 30 list in 2021 when I was 21, but it actually took me a few tries and I didn't get in until I understood what I'm about to share with you. So in this video, I'm going to explain the shocking way that some people get on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, how I unexpectedly got a celebrity to help me, my honest take on why I think it is worth it still, even if the award gets a lot of fair criticism, which we'll get into, because as you're about to see, it's not a particularly fair process and it's not a meritocracy, but it's actually been very helpful in some shocking ways in building my company to 200 people and tens of millions of dollars in revenue. So let's dive into it. So you're probably wondering, why do you think it's worth it if you don't think it's a fair process? And the answer there was because it changed my life at the time. I was a 20-year-old at this point when I was first getting interested in the Forbes 30 under 30 award. And the reason I was interested was for the past 4 years, I'd been repeatedly rejected from customers, investors, potential partners, because I was a high school dropout. They'd often ask me things like, "Where'd you go to college?" And then I would have to explain I didn't go to college, and they would often get to the fact that I was actually a 10th grade dropout, which wasn't great in building credibility among future customers or future investors. So I thought to myself that if I had some fancy award from Forbes to be able to speak about that validated my work more, that I'd be taken more seriously. That turned out to be exactly right. The first thing is that it supercharged my ability to recruit talent. Overnight, my reply rate on reaching out to people on LinkedIn with nothing else changing went from like 1 in 5 people replying to 3 in 5. 3 times as many just by adding Forbes 30 under 30 to my title, which I've split tested it even in present day in 2025. And this is still the case that more people reply with that title because while it does have stigma attached, there's also some credibility, whether we like it or not. The second piece here is that it supercharged my ability to sell our product, because when I'd mention in a cold email to a customer or in our sales deck that I had been recognized in Forbes 30 under 30, restaurant owners would think that was really cool. That's our customer base. They'd say things like, "Wow, that's awesome, Adam." And they'd ask me how I got it. And suddenly the conversation wouldn't end when they found out that I was a high school dropout. This was one of the first credentials I got. I got it right around the same time as the Teal Fellowship, but among the general population, people outside of tech, it is actually better known than the Teal Fellowship. So that is one of the benefits. It also, at the time that I got it, I remember, made a lot of the people that I'd met and were kind of loose acquaintances recognize me that day and remember me for opportunities as they came up after I made that list. There were like 30 people the day of the award that texted me and said, "Congrats, Adam, this is awesome. Here's a restaurant that I know the owner of. Would you like an introduction here?" Just like outright offering to help me. And I hadn't really had that happen before. So that felt good. And that was also really useful. Now, you're probably wondering, how does getting Forbes 30 under 30 work? Because like I said, I don't believe that it is a meritocracy in most ways. It's not like quantified calculation of your work product. There's a lot of behind the scenes connection stuff that happens, but it's also not like any random person can get it. I got it through a very unusual situation with the Chainsmokers, the music group, who even like 2 months prior to this whole process happening, I would have dreamed about like getting to know and raising money from. At that point, I never thought I'd be able to raise venture capital. Our business was bootstrapped and we were about to go out of business because COVID had completely disrupted our business and all of our revenue goes to zero in 2 weeks. So we're left in this dire position. Now, over the next 2 months, we launched this new online ordering product with the last resources we have, and the business skyrockets. And I go from weeks away from running out of cash, no customers, about to be no revenue, to then thousands of customers, approaching $1 million in revenue run rate, and all of these famous investors, including the Chainsmokers, within like a month, pounding down our door to invest. At the time that I met the Chainsmokers, they were late in the process, so we'd already pretty much raised the round and they were begging to be let in. So they asked what they could do to get in. And I, again, was in like a fantasy. I'd never thought this would ever happen to me. And I was so grateful, but I'm like, what would be useful is finally having a credential, because I've been struggling for years without one. So if you happen to know the people at Forbes, that would be great. And they're like, not only do we know the people at Forbes, we were the headliners of the Forbes 30 under 30 conference last year. And when they invested, they texted their contact at Forbes, who they told why they believed in me as a founder. And that ultimately ended up clinching it after being rejected a few times. By the way, if you're interested in continuing to learn about my super unconventional journey to now being the CEO of a 200-person company that's doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue. I post all sorts of wild stories and learnings from the past 7 years in building this business on this channel every single month. So make sure to click that subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss out on some of the upcoming videos. My big takeaway from this whole process was that credentials really matter whether we like them or not. I feel gross about the fact that they matter. It's not great, but people quickly take shortcuts in looking at your resume or your background to understand whether your work is high quality. And the more of those shortcuts convey authority and trust, like you've achieved things, even if they're things that aren't actually a meritocratic process, the easier it is to have doors open up. At least that's what I found in this. I've also now been on the other side of this as a CEO that's been part of interviewing thousands of people to build our team of 200. And while it doesn't make the decision for us ever, we never say this person has this credential, therefore they should get the role or anything like that. We take them through a rigorous interview process. What actually gets us to give them an interview is often a relevant past experience, whether that's some relevant company like Shopify or HubSpot that we really admire and makes the resume stand out, or maybe it's some unusual award like the Forbes 30 Under 30 award or the Teal Fellowship. Anything on a resume that is unusual makes people stand out and is a shortcut to credibility, even speaking as somebody that was a high school dropout. Okay, so now that we've discussed how people get it, you're probably wondering, what do you get on the other side? The answer there is you choose your own adventure. There's a few different options to choose from. There is now a conference that happens every year where they invite all the people on the list to go and they sell tickets separately, weirdly enough, and they have a lounge to network with people. I have been to a few of those over the past 5 years or so, and they were really cool. Loved meeting other people that were young and doing cool stuff. It ended up leading me to meet people that I wouldn't have otherwise met and learn from them, which I found really valuable and cool, and as a decent replacement for my high school or college experience and being able to meet people, because I didn't get to experience those in the traditional sense at all. The other part to choosing your own adventure is figuring out who you want to connect with out of this and then making it happen when you're in the community together. While there are some controversial figures like Elizabeth Holmes that have tarnished the name of the list, and there are some like clout chasers that are not really great to interact with that are a part of this thing, there are some also extremely high quality people that I've met. An example of this is Zach Weigel, who's the founder of Gamers Outreach, one of the largest charities in the gaming space that provides Xbox consoles and other cool games to children that are in hospitals. Getting to know him and then see him start a restaurant, interestingly enough, which then I was able to advise and help him on because that was a space that I knew well, was an awesome experience. And I felt like I got to understand a whole different perspective of a young person that was building a charity that I wouldn't have otherwise met. One other thing I'd tell myself if I were advising my younger self about this is that you should not let this list determine your self-worth, but you should lean into it motivating you. What I mean by that is at the time I was confusing the fact that people saw my lack of credentials and refused to give me time or attention with me not being as valuable a person. I wasn't fully understanding that this was just a shortcut that people take to understand one's relevance or credibility, and that I could develop those things in other ways too. I didn't need some external validation from this credential that I admired in order to feel valuable and credible and worthy. So looking back, while this was something that kind of helped in building credibility, I think even if I hadn't gotten it, there were other paths to getting there, to building that credibility. One of those paths is creating really great content, because this medium doesn't require a gatekeeper of somebody to stamp a credential on you and tell you you're valuable and you have something good to say. You can develop credibility through posting videos or blog posts, sharing your thoughts and insights and perspectives in ways that are useful and that build tons of authority over time in your abilities on a topic. What I'm trying to say here is that you don't need a fancy organization like Forbes to stamp the credential on you. It can help, but it's not worth getting obsessed with, and it certainly shouldn't be something that you personally see as an end all or be all for your credibility. So let it drive you. Let the fact, if you don't have one of these credentials, let it motivate you. I think that that was super helpful to me, but definitely don't confuse that with letting it dilute your self-worth or your ability to earn those credibility builders in other ways. Speaking of using time to build credibility and self-worth, I just posted a video on this channel about how I manage my time in order to build my company and how that has evolved over time as I've learned more about productivity science and overall time management. So if you want to see that video of how I run my schedule and running a 200-person company to still get lots of stuff done personally while also leading and managing a team, click to the right of me right now. I walk you through in that video my entire daily routine from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., the things that I find most useful for productivity, and some of the myths that I debunk about what people think leads to productivity that actually leads to worse results over time.